Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Better Events Podcast. In today's episode, we're doing something that we like to call off the cuff. We're just going to talk about some things that have been top of mind for the first 3 months of 2025. It includes conversations about 11 Madison Park, volleyball, and more. So we're excited to have more of a relaxed conversation today and share that with you. So let's go ahead and get into the episode.
Welcome to the Better Events Podcast. Join two event strategists, Logan Clements and Mary Davidson, who believe we can all create, host, and attend better events. In this podcast, you will learn about event strategy and actions that you can use today as an event host, planner, or manager. Hear directly from the people who are creating innovative and inspiring events today and tomorrow, and grow your business along the way. Now, let's get started, and thanks for listening to the Better Events Podcast.
Hi, friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Better Events Podcast. I'm your co-host, Logan Clements, and I'm joined by fellow co-host Mary Davidson. And this week, we are talking all about what's been going on with us in events, in life, these first 3 months of the year. Because Mary, I can't believe we're almost through the first 3 months of 2025. Sounds insane. But we persevere, we carry on. Before we jump into that, I do want to start with our conversation starter. And Mary, this one, it's about your digital tools. What app or website do you spend the most time on?
I'm already like, oh my gosh, so many of them. This is my problem. I've talked about setting an app limit on my phone for some things. I would say it's definitely Instagram for me. I wish it was something more productive, but that is my vice is Instagram. I just love it. People are hilarious. And some days you're scrolling and you're like, man, this is a good day on Instagram because it's just hilarious. My feed is very curated to animal videos, so I get trapped there for a while. Logan, what about you? What app or website do you spend the most time on?
Yeah, it's probably got to be Instagram. Trying to be better at not doom scroll. It's not even doom scrolling, but just mindless scrolling at
Yeah.
nighttime. Can't remember what book it was I was reading. It just calls it a revenge sleep. And it's just if you're someone who doesn't have control over your day, you like purposely stay up later to do something else because you're trying to take back your time. But in fact, you're kind of more just wasting more time. So Um, I find I can scroll for very long amounts of time and not notice time is passing and not get more tired. So it doesn't actually help me fall asleep. Versus if I watch a TV show, that's sometimes hit or miss. But anytime I read a book right before bed, I can actually go to bed. So I'm working on it aspirationally.
Aren't we all? I love it.
Yes. I think everyone can listen and Eric can answer this question. They have
Yeah.
something they spend maybe too much time on.
Yes. I wish I could say something more productive, but you know what? We'll ask this again in a year and see where we are. But we are going to get into our episode today. Our topic is something that we like to do once in a while. We're doing like a little a check-in. And so this is the first, 3 months of 2025 that we've been through. We're going to talk through all of the things that this first quarter has looked like for us and just give you a little bit of an update. We're going to keep it real and all of that good stuff. So let's go ahead and just get into our laid back discussion. Everyone listening, wherever you're listening, feel free to relax and kind of contemplate where you have been the last 3 months as well. So, Logan, what's this first quarter of the year look like for you overall?
It's been absolutely bananas. Just bananas, Mary, in the best of ways. Like I'm good busy, but I'm doing some really exciting projects that I wanted to. But I had a client that when I first signed on needed me to do a lot of travel in January, and then it was going to slow down, and it has not. They've added dates and added a lot more travel, and so I feel like I'm not normally on the road a lot in January and February. Usually my March is pretty bonkers. And now I'm kind of on the tail end of my bonkers. It was like January was a little crazy. February was absolutely insane. Like insane listeners. Like I'd be home for a night, 20 hours to unpack, repack, like multiple times this happened. And then my March is relatively busy, but I will say I've achieved being home for like a week, which again, I've talked about this. My dream schedule is other people's nightmare, but like a week is a long amount of time for me to be home during event season. So it's a mixture of everything, though. It's a lot of repeat clients, which I feel grateful for with being really busy with this new client. My repeat clients, I know what I'm getting into. I know what they need. So a lot of that stuff is rinse and repeat. But overall, I've been a lot busier this year to start the year, which I feel like kind of just hit me in the face versus I usually get to ease in. So, Mary, how about you? Quick summary of your first quarter.
I mean, it's been a roller coaster. I think I've shared based on some of our first episodes we did of the new year. I was like not at all motivated to start off 2025, which is unlike me. Normally I'm, ready to go, got all the goals, but it just took me a little bit longer to get on board that bandwagon this year. So it was a hard start. January was rough. And so it's getting a little bit better. My mind is starting to be eased more. So yeah, I just feel like it's been a roller coaster. And then also during this first 3 months, so one of my mantras for 2025 is to just to do less or like think of like, what if I just didn't do something? I feel like I'm not sticking to that. So I'm trying to like reflect and think about the rest of the year. But I had just too many, opportunities come, not just events, but like a couple speaking opportunities and things like that, which meant that for a month, we're in the midst of it now, but, like, we'll only be home for 6 days, and that's unlike me. That sounds like a Logan schedule, and so I'm like, "Oh, wow, okay. Is that what I want? I don't know," but I'm grateful for all the opportunities, like, each of them are helping me towards my goals in one way or another, and so it's not bad, just a little turning into bananas, like Logan said.
What's been like the most rewarding aspect or thing so far this year?
This is a hard question to answer. Okay, I'm forming this as I talk. I think 2 things. 1, partnerships. Always been rewarding, but this year, like, started the year off kind of forming, like, a new partnership, and that is something that has been so valuable to me, like, I can't even express, like, how valuable it is. It's with I think I've talked about it before, but it's with, industry peers. We all do, like, fundraising events in the Seattle area, so you could say that we're competitors, but we've come together and kinda created this really wonderful partnership, and that's been amazing. So, that's been super rewarding. The other thing would be I've had, like, moments to realize things that I have to do better. I'm not trying to be hard on myself, but the reality is there were some things that I really needed to change in business, and it was kind of like a, "This has to happen now" type of a conversation I had to have with myself, and that actually feels really empowering to be able to, like, have those moments when you're like, "Hold on, like, this we need to make change." Does that make sense? I feel like I'm having a hard time articulating that, but that has been rewarding this year to be able to kind of address that head on.
Think for me, the most rewarding part has been my own community. So whether it's the people I'm getting to work with on some of these events where really truly the people make the project, and was reflecting with somebody I was working at an event with, and I was like, if these people weren't as fun and nice as they are, like this would be pretty rough. I don't think I would keep doing this just because again, the people make the long days worth it. And I'm still, dealing with health stuff going on in my family, and that's been, I'd say, something I've been dealing with for now almost, we're going on almost 9 months, which is wild. That this has been such a big aspect. And so I feel like I've had to just be really intentional with friends, both near and far, and just asking for help and or just being very honest about what I can do and what I can take on. And it has been very difficult, but I have also feel like it's gotten easier the more I'm doing it. Like the more my friends are understanding, and I'm realizing it's not that scary to ask for help or to say like I want to see people, but I honestly can't leave my apartment right now. So like if you guys want to come over, I'll order snacks or something like that. And just seeing folks step up has been really cool. And something that I've learned, just I think I was a little more passive with my connecting with people a year or two ago, and I've realized now, like, I really need to just ask for what I need and tell people, hey, I want to see you. It just needs to be in this capacity. And if you can't do it, I get it. But if if you're free, then I want to do that.
I think that's awesome, and I was just thinking, Logan, we've had time to hang out a little bit this New Year, I
I
or
know
and
for
this
how
last month.
bonkers the year has been, you and I got ramen
We
together
got ramen. We've been trying to do this forever. Anyone, like, if you wanna
months.
know. It's been yeah, well, we made it happen, so it's been a very productive
It has.
first
We went
quarter.
to an industry event together,
We
and
did. Yeah.
I mean, I even laugh. I've been traveling so much, like with my partner, and he's dealing with this health stuff and on his side of the family. So I've had to be really intentional to be like, can we go for a breakfast date? And like you
Yeah,
and I just go to a breakfast place not far from, his family's house.
I love
And
that.
that's been
Yeah.
really nice. Or like we had a Starbucks date the other day before I went on my trip because I was like, I just want 45 minutes. And he's like, "Really?" Like, and I was like, "If you could spare 45 minutes, like, both of us step away from our projects 45 minutes before I head to the airport," like, and that's been really nice. It feels really silly to be like, I have to be explicit. Being intentional with, like, what I need when I need it, has been really nice.
I think that's awesome. Yeah. What about any standout moments or events or something like that in the last 3 months?
This one's a personal one, and it's as much as I say my schedule has been bonkers travel-wise, it truly has, listeners. But I also have gotten to fit in some fun stuff amongst the bonkersness, and I am so proud of myself for that. So the most I feel like the standout moment was I went on a ski trip with my family in the midst of 2 work trips, so it turned into, like, one crazy long classic Logan 4 city tour 9-day trip. But I got to go tubing with my family, and, we stayed in a cute little cabin like, house that had a hot tub and just got to see all my siblings, which I normally don't get to do unless it's the holidays, and, we are a big family, so we'd all grappled with, like, when's the best time, and it turns out there's never a good time, but we were able to get everyone together for one night, which was really nice. And then because I had my snowboard, with me on the second part of my trip, I then had, like, I think I had a 2 p.m. call time for my event, and I was like, there's snowboarding 30 minutes away that I was included in my snowboard pass. So, Mary, I went snowboarding on an event day for like 2 hours. And it was lovely. And I caught myself like smiling to myself snowboarding. And this has been a journey for me learning snowboarding the last 4 years. First time ever going by myself, smiling. I'm like, I guess I'm now a snowboarder because I'm clearly enjoying myself. And then got to stop at like my favorite bagel place in this ski town before I drove back to the city. And got told I seemed a little lighter that day, which I was like, maybe it was. I had a good dopamine hit of getting up early in the morning and getting first runs in for some snowboarding. So like getting to do fun stuff while I'm traveling for work, I am proud of the progress I'm making.
I think that's amazing. That's actually huge. Like, I can't even comprehend being able to do that on an event day. Like, what a win. No, of course you were lighter or whatever they said. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Ah, cool. Okay. Well, aspirational. Thank you for sharing that.
I want to hear about your life-changing trip though. If anyone follows Mary on Instagram, she alluded to this, her New York City trip in February. I've been
Oh my
sitting on the edge of my seat, so we have staved story time for you listeners on the podcast.
Yes, we have. Okay, my life was truly changed. I went to New York City in February for a hosted by your event, and the event was fine. But I extended and was able to
Not the
have some
life-changing part.
not that was not the life-changing part. It was very exhausting. I convinced my sister-in-law to come along because, when you get hosted, you get, like, these things, and I'm like, "Gosh, people should come with me." So she came, which was awesome, but we extended and went to 11 Madison Park. If you're familiar with the book Unreasonable Hospitality, that is the book that talks a lot about that restaurant. We read it for an Event Pros book club that Logan hosts, and I finished it way later than everybody else, but it was actually, admittedly, I finished it the day after I went to the restaurant, but by then I kinda knew how it was gonna end. I just asked, and I got my sister-in-law to read it too. She's not in the industry, but it's still just, like, so applicable. So I don't know if we wanna just, like, take a moment. Logan, let's take a moment. Unreasonable Hospitality. Okay, what do you think about the book? Was it life-changing to you?
It pretty much was. I mean, I think it was one of those that it became a highlight of the year for me. It's all about he's a restaurateur and like a restaurant manager and worked his way up through the years. And yes, his whole concept of unreasonable hospitality is like what is going above and beyond the above and beyond. And he talks about the nitty gritty behind the scenes of it and who they hired. And they actually, what do they call them? Dream weavers. Like they actually had a
Yeah,
job
I think
title.
yeah.
Yeah, dream weavers, like people who actually work at the company and are paid to just think of ways to like go above and beyond. And I feel like an example I'm thinking would just be little like they always had quarters at the hostess and at the host stand so that they could go out and fill the meters of any customers' cars like out front to make sure no one got ticketed, or somebody forgot to take the champagne out of the freezer or left something on, and they literally were like, we'll take your keys and go back to your apartment, and they like left an extra bottle of champagne for them or something, and caviar. Like it's just all these little things that they go above and beyond on, while also trying to make the service experience like a whole elevated experience and not in a hoity-toity stuffy way. I don't know, Mary, what else from there was a takeaway for you?
Yeah, definitely that. When I first read it, I'm like, "Unreasonable hospitality, that seems like an unreachable goal type of situation," but what it really was, like, little things that they did, just the surprise and delight. One moment from the book that they talked about a lot, I don't remember what they call them, there's a certain phrase, but it's, like, these special things that they'll do. Do you remember, Logan? And they called it, like, "Oh, this person mentioned that they are in New York City for the weekend, but they didn't get to try a street hot dog yet, and so they, like, got a street hot dog outside for them and brought it back, and they had a name for all of these things that they were doing, and, they would report out, like, at the end of every shift, like, what is their cool thing that they did, and yes, it comes at a cost, but that's the point. It's this unreasonable hospitality, this experience, and so, yeah, it's a great book. Obviously, we recommend it. You should check it out. But so it's all about this restaurant that I went to. And it's a fine dining restaurant, which let me just tell you right now, I'm not a fancy person. I go to Taco Bell all the time. The first time at a fine dining restaurant, and I felt so out of place with the idea. The cool thing about it is if you look it up, like there's no dress code. They just say to wear what you're comfortable wearing. So when you start thinking through some of the ways that they form this restaurant, it actually does feel like welcoming, which was interesting because I was a little nervous, to be honest. Um, and so, yeah, we made a reservation, we got there, and we were the first reservation for that night, and so when we got there, they were doing what they explain in the book, which is this pre it's not they call it pre-meal, but it was, like, at the end of pre-meal, it was their big team meeting before, they went off to work the shift, and so we walk in, and they're, like, cheering, and they're, like, really loud in the back, and we can see them, but we're like I'm like, "Are we supposed to be here right now?" And the greeter, like, greets us and everything, and she's like, "Oh, yeah, it's actually somebody's last day, and so they're celebrating them over there, but they'll be done soon." And so it was just this, like, really interesting environment to, like, walk into right off the bat, and so it was fun to see them celebrating, but we got seated, and then our server came over, he was awesome, his name was Garrett, shout out to Garrett, and, he's like, "What are you celebrating tonight?" And we're like, "Oh, it's our first time at a fine dining restaurant, and so we're just here to enjoy." And so that was cool. We felt a little silly, but it was awesome. And then they brought the food out in courses. The food was amazing. Since the book was written, it's turned to a vegan restaurant, which was actually really, really great. Because if I'm going to a fine dining restaurant, I've decided like I want to be able to try everything, and I'm way more picky when it comes to meats and stuff. So vegan, I'm like, let's try it, whatever it is, and it was delicious. Before we got our dessert course, we had the and I'm sorry, I'm not in the restaurant industry, so I hope I'm, like, calling everybody by their correct name but, like, the hostess came up to us and was like, "I hear that you're celebrating something tonight." And we're like, yeah, I mean, we're just celebrating that, like, this is our first time at a fine dining restaurant." And she was like, "Well, if you would like, I would love to give you a tour of the kitchen," which they also talk about in the book. So I was like, "No way." And so my sister-in-law and I are like, "Yes," but the thing is we're gonna run late to a Broadway show that we were gonna see, but we're like, "At this point, we're invested in this 11 Madison Park experience. Yes, we're gonna go tour the kitchen. We're just gonna be late to the show." And so we go back and they take us to this table in the back, and the kitchen is, like, immaculate, and there's, like, 50 people working back there. It's crazy. One of the chefs brings over this, like, tray of snow is what they called it, and what it actually was, like, shaved applesauce that looked like or apple juice, sorry, that looked like snow, and they did the thing which I feel like they also talk about in the book where they put maple syrup on it, and then they, like, put a little like spoolie, like lollipop spoolie, and they gave us this little like snow maple treat back there. And it was lovely. And she was like, "Take all the pictures and videos you want." People were smiling. And I was like, I hope they like their jobs because it sure seems like they do. But it was cool. And it was like such a calm environment back there. Our server told us they weren't really supposed to like talk very loudly back there and stuff like that. And so this really special experience. We get back to our table, we're served dessert and all of the courses that come with dessert. It was amazing. Everybody just was super nice, super welcoming, and I felt like just so special without them really knowing much about, me or why I was actually there or that I even read the book. Like they just did these things. And at the end of the night, they did the thing that they talk about in the book, which is they gave us granola to go in this like cute little bag, and their granola is so good. I'm still eating it. It's genuinely the best. And so this is a very lengthy explanation about my time at 11 Madison Park. Maybe you don't care, but if you do, it was magical. And I hope that if you go, you have the same experience. I have no idea if it's like something that you would experience too. Like I just don't know how they do it for everybody, but I feel like if you tell them you're going to celebrate something, you're probably going to have a similar experience. So that was the highlight of my quarter.
Such a good one. That's so cool that you got to go. I feel like there you go. Endorsed by the Better Events podcast that you should go to 11 Madison Park. It's definitely still on my list, I would say. Mary, do you have any like strategies or practices that you want to carry over or maybe start in this next quarter?
I'm sure that I do. I'm trying to think of what they might be. I think I just wanna, I started tracking my time at the beginning of the year, and I kind of fell off the bandwagon of that, but I'd like to restart doing that again. I think that's a lot of the reality of goals is, like, you start and then you stop, but I'm gonna restart again. That's been really valuable information to see where I'm spending my time personally, all around, not just for working an event, but all around. So I'm gonna continue that strategy. Logan, what about you? Any strategies or practices that you want to carry into the next quarter?
This is coming from a very real place, but I need to take time off.
Hmm.
And I have found myself caught in a bit of a circle where I feel like I can't take time off. And when I say time off, listeners, like I want to take true time off. Like I'm not checking my email. I am not reachable. You cannot contact me. And I had a goal to do some time off in the spring and at least another time in the fall. And I will say the spring is getting full, and I'm a little frustrated with myself because it's all things I want to do, but I also know it's kind of like a story I tell myself that I'm so important I can't take time off, where it's not really true. I just need to do it. And again, I found as long as I over communicate to clients that their pre-planning, not even their event, but their pre-planning process gets impacted by. So that's something that I felt like this past quarter I've been so reactive and just trying to like keep doing things that I'm a little worried that my slower time of the year has turned into a busy time of year and I have my busy time of year coming up, and how do I make sure that I don't burn out? Because I feel like the pace I'm going at is reminding me of a pace I took in 2022. So my compromise I have to myself is maybe I can't take a full like 2 weeks off. Maybe I can only take a week or even 4 days. And there's a lot of really cool places around Seattle that I could try to convince some girlfriends or somebody to go just, for a couple days away. And I know almost all of my projects are okay with me, taking a couple days off. Maybe a week freaks them out a bit, but 2 days here, 2 days there, and actually sticking to it. So I tried it in the first quarter. I had a week or two on my calendar. I started blocking, being like, no travel in all caps to protect me from myself from saying yes to going somewhere. I think I just need to keep an eye on my energy levels and actually put some time off in the calendar.
I think it's good though that you're recognizing that for sure. Yeah. And I know you have a lot coming up, but it's a good reminder. And Logan, I encourage you to do it. I feel like you can take at least a couple days or like an afternoon. So you got it. It's gonna be great. Last question. How do you plan to recharge and reset as you prepare for the next quarter besides just taking a vacation?
Well, I've kept my streak alive, listeners, of doing 10 minutes of movement a day. Again, with the reframe that I don't want to be the person that can't take 10 minutes for myself. And sometimes that 10 minutes means I was walking around a bunch of time on site. So that's my 10 minutes of movement. Sometimes it's yoga before I go to bed. Sometimes it's an actual workout. So I'm going to keep that streak alive. That's something I feel like I will continue to feel good if I keep doing. And then I was really good this quarter and I want to continue that is getting massages. So making sure that I schedule that at least once a month. I get a nice 90-minute leisurely massage just to help my body keep moving and doing what I'm doing. Since I've learned from my massage therapist that the combination of sitting on a plane and then standing and or walking for prolonged periods of time is a really bad combination for flexibility and mobility. So I'm just again really trying to take care of my like physical being. So I'd say those are my two. And then my third aspirational one is I know like doctor's appointments and things are just important and easy to put off until a better time. But I am making it a goal of mine to actually make some appointments just to check in on things. And I know I can make the time. It just, I got to get it on the calendar. How about you, Mary?
Okay, thanks for sharing. I think those are important in the reality. I've started to schedule a monthly like CEO day, which I might have mentioned before on the podcast because I haven't actually done it. We've talked about it a lot, but I didn't really put it into practice. So now I'm practicing what we preach and actually seeing the benefit of doing it. So I'm on board with like the CEO days or whatever you want to call them, and I want to stick to that. And that feels like a reset to me every time I do it. So that's why I'm bringing it up now. It's so powerful to be able to like have that knowledge that you're reflecting on, like seeing how you're actually doing and all of this stuff. So that is what I would like to try to keep doing this next quarter. I think in small business, every quarter is so different one from the other, and so it's gonna be exciting to kinda see what that looks like too. So, I wanna keep doing that, and that will help me feel reset. I'm motivated about the work right now, so maybe next quarter I'll have like, "Oh, no, I really need to rest," but right now I'm like, "I'm in it. Let's do it."
Yes, we're very pro CEO days, or what article did you send me, Mary? What did they call them? Was it a mindset day?
It is called a think day.
Think day. That's a good way
Yeah.
to reframe. If you're someone who viscerally hates the word CEO, or maybe doesn't evaluate, or resonate with that, then I would say a think day. It's a nice alternative. Well, yeah, that's kind of how we're doing, listeners. Again, let us know if you like these kind of episodes. If I feel like it's fun to see what we're doing outside of, just our regular kind of podcast episodes. But I have the bonus tip this week, Mary. So this one is all about your transition music for events, from walk on music to filler music between the different elements that happen on stage. Make sure you think about your music. One of my favorite ways to show a speaker's personality is to have them choose their own walk on music. If you are the organizer, you probably still want to vet it to make sure it's appropriate for your audience. But I think it can also be music is a way to speak to your event theme or the overall feeling you want to have in your session. And also things to consider if you're trying to stream it or you want to post it on YouTube later. But I feel like often I'm coming up in time and time again with clients where music is an afterthought, and there's just so much cool stuff that you can do with it if you think of it as a part of your program and not a last minute addition.
That is such a great bonus tip. It's so true. I will never wipe the memory from my mind of a speaker who's had this AC/DC song that they requested that, like, it was the most surprising moment of the whole conference, and I loved it. So, absolutely great bonus tip. Thank you, Logan. And thank you, everyone, for listening to another episode of the Better Events Podcast. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Better Events Pod. You can send us an email at bettereventspod@gmail.com. You can connect with us directly on LinkedIn. We'd love to hear from you. And if you want more Better Events content, you can join our private community on Substack. We'd love to see you there as well. And thank you so much for listening to another episode. We will be back with you again next Wednesday.